We completed entire section A and the case study analysis of this business paper 1, HLSL November 2025, and this is TZ1 by the way. And I will move on to questions 7 and 8 and key points we can make, how to structure this. And so hopefully just stay on. Do check out the other videos if you're interested in those, but I think these 10 markers are probably what you guys are struggling with most. And so we'll just go through and cover these. And so number 7, they're asking, using Maslow's motivation theory, whether Nikita's plan will reduce the number of employees leaving. So important keyword is discuss, and that's what they have for most 10 markers. So when they say discuss, what we want to do is advantage, right? Uh, Disadvantage, right? We want to give a balanced argument, and that's in the criteria as well. Balanced argument, and what you want to do is make points that are sort of taking implications from this case study that might possibly be an advantage or might possibly be an advantage, right? Disadvantage, sorry. Application of case study. So you can start talking about even what you discovered in the previous questions, like WW is finding it hard to secure sources of finance, and so part of this plan will be really costly, right? And so any sort of application that makes sense, you'll get marks for that. So just think, sit with the case study for a bit, and then even make a mind map when just before you write the question, organize your thoughts, and that should be simple, right? So application of case study specifics. So for the specific plan, what we will be looking at is mostly page 2, right? 25 employees on permanent contracts. Maybe I'll do this. That's important. Salary is higher than the industry mean. Now we also have to look at the limitations of the case study. So let's do this in red. Limitation. L. How much is it higher? It could be higher by 1%, 0.5%, $2, right? How much higher? That's a question we can ask in our discussion. So we can say, however, uh, the case study faces limitations such as uh, how much higher is the salary that would sway the decision, maybe? Is the salary from industry mean, right? Then we have 25 employees on permanent contract. Do we know if any of these or if we have any on part-time contracts? Any part-time that might be relevant have not increased for 2 years. Some other applications works alone at the workstation. This is isolation, right? And we talked about this in the case study analysis. So definitely go check that out. I won't cover it again. Safety needs, ear protection, prevents conversation, and then the basic employee facilities are not great. And it literally says that improving these facilities would be expensive. So that would be a disadvantage that you can mention. And so here's the plan that we're talking about. We're talking about this plan. And we need to reference essentially this entire line 39 to 61, right? This is still relevant, right? HR manager disagrees with some elements of Nikita's plan, and then we have this. So let's just barricade all this together. Okay, so this is one thing we can mention. HR manager disagrees, and now we should consider why. So we have salary increase, We have Employee of the Year trophy, a monthly dinner. And so these all have to be addressed in our discussion, opportunities to work with team. So we need to give an advantage and disadvantage of each of them, referring to Maslow's hierarchy, because each of these are on uh different levels of the hierarchy, right? Now we can mention what levels those are. So salary increase is basic, right? That's our basic uh physiological. Then we have Employee of the Year trophy, that is more about self-esteem, recognition, right? Self-esteem. You're providing recognition and uh giving them value. Then a monthly dinner at a local restaurant paid for WW. This is more social, right? Love and belonging, social, love and belonging. And then we have opportunities to work in teams. Again, social, love and belonging. And so these are the four things we should reply to or discuss in our discussion in our 10 marker. And then the most important thing to mention is these things we have highlighted here, and this exit interview section conducts an exit interview whenever an employee leaves. So they have about I think we discussed 20% annual turnover rate, right? I just calculated that based on what they mentioned. 25 employees, and how many leave? I think we had 10 people leave every year. We can find that somewhere. 8 employees have resigned, right? So that's 4 out of 25 per year in the last 2 years. 8. So this is an important one as well. 8 employees have resigned. Then we have when an employee leaves, conducts an exit interview. And what they have cited, the reasons they have cited is achievements were rarely recognized. So our Employee of the Year trophy is definitely going to help, right? Okay. Then better promotion opportunities elsewhere. We haven't talked about promotion opportunities, so that is not addressed. Not addressed. Then WW had poor employee facilities. We have not addressed that. Not addressed. Felt isolated at work. We're addressing that, right? So we're addressing these two with working teams monthly dinner. And their ideas on how to improve efficiency were ignored. That is again not addressed. She still has an autocratic style. And so those are the key things we want to be looking at when writing this. Now, when it says discuss, we do not want to make a recommendation, right? We just want to have a introduction, body paragraphs with advantage, disadvantage, and then a conclusion stating maybe some parts of the plan are very relevant, some parts are quite unnecessary or extra costly for and are not needed, right? And we understand what the HR manager is against some parts of the plan. Uh, but in our conclusion should be something that helps us evaluate finally, right? So the acronym I want you guys to use is SLAP whenever you're doing your advantages, disadvantages, and your conclusion. I want you to think of, sorry, let me do this in red so it stands out. Stakeholder implications, right? The implications, long term, short term. What is the impact of this plan in the long term, short term? So short term, maybe you uh increase or you increase long term motivation, but you increase your short term costs. And so the business has to balance that. And if they're willing to if they've secured enough finance in the short term, I think it would definitely be a great plan to go forward with. You can say something like that because it increases long-term motivation of employees, which increases long-term productivity. And then A is advantages, disadvantages, right, which we just discussed. And then it should be from any perspective. So try to think of this case study from as many perspectives as you can. And P is our priorities. What is the priority of the specific business? So this business is has sustainable mission, right? It has a green mission, and it wants to be a renewable energy company. It wants to be the industry leader, right? So we can say, let's look at the mission, vision, assumptions that we have made, or the limitations of the case study, right? Mission, vision, assumptions, uh, any challenges they've endured. And when we're talking about stakeholders, we're talking about cost, the benefit, and we can talk about internal vs external stakeholders. That's also a possibility. Or we could just compare how it affects specific stakeholders. Now, even for priorities, we can include goals, strategies, objectives, goals, objectives, right? So think of this as MGVO, mission, goals, vision, and objectives, right? MGVO. So this is our 10 marker. And some additional things we can also look at, maybe even our mostly for our 17 marker if that comes up in paper 3, or you can include it for this as well. How is the communication? Look at sustainability of whatever decision we're making, and the leadership and the costs, right? Costs. Now that's part of our advantages, disadvantages, but maybe we can make this a sub acronym, right? So communication. How how is communication within the organization or to external stakeholders? How is that affected within org or to stakeholders? Uh, as for sustainability, and this can be our triple bottom line. Sometimes you want to evaluate the sustainability of a business, um, or sustainability of the plan, right? You might reduce the number of employees leaving in the short term or in the long term, but in the short term, nothing's going to happen, you know? So that's something you got to think about. And leadership is exactly what we're talking about, right? She's autocratic type of style, org structure. She's autocratic. No one has decision making power. They have no responsibility. There's no room for promotion. So that makes it tough, right? So these are some additional concepts you can add. And costs are fairly straightforward, right? Okay, so now let's talk about Maslow. Maslow, in fact, we don't need to talk about Maslow. We discussed where these are allocated. So let's go line by line. Let's, yeah. So first is our intro, right? We want to have an intro. Let's introduce the business or the plan, general plan that is being made. So what we're going to say is WW is a renewable, or we can say WWA renewable energy tile producer. Uh, has been uh experiencing employee retention issues with a high turnover rate, right? Uh, the CEO, right, Nikita, Nikita, uh, has come up with a plan, uh, to reduce employees leaving. So you can literally just reuse the words from the question to reduce employees leaving. Uh, but HR manager disagrees with some elements, right? That hmm, using Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we will evaluate the elements of the plan. We will evaluate, what did they discuss? We'll evaluate the we'll discuss whether the we will discuss which or how elements of this plan may be successful. Successful, right? And we can go into our body paragraph. This is actually quite long for an intro. We can even shorten it. It does not have to be this long, but it helps you as well just to remember things about the case study, and then you can go into it. You're never going to get penalized for an introduction though. Okay, then you're going to have body one, maybe answering the first one, a salary increase. Okay. Salary increase. And now I'm just going to talk in bullet points. I won't do full sentences. And we have employee of the year, trophy, monthly dinner, trophy, monthly dinner. And guys, definitely speed this up. I can't talk that fast. So, monthly dinner. If you're happy with this pace, then don't, but local restaurant, and then opportunities to work in teams. That's a important one, right? To work in teams. And in the intro, we can mention things like, we can mention specifics like 8 employees out of 25 left in 2 years, right? That helps provide an overview of the issue, and so that's relevant and important. So you could include that in the introduction, or you can include it in your body. Okay, so let's talk about this now. So first, let's allocate these to Maslow's hierarchy. Where do these land? The salary increase. So we're told that it's above the industry average. So maybe it's not a basic salary, but salary typically lands in the basic physiological needs, right? Basic secure, basic survival, right? Survival, psychological, not psychological, physiological needs, right? Because it helps. So first define what the need is. Basic survival physiological needs, right? You get good marks for just understanding what each of these is allocated to on that pyramid. So basic survival physiological needs. And for those of you who actually don't know how the pyramid looks like, just search it up. You'll get a nice image and understand the levels to the hierarchy. And then we have that helps us pay, helps employees pay for basic needs, right? Basic essentials like like food, water, shelter, a house, right? Like home, food, water, right? Clothes. So those are basic needs, and that's why a salary is considered part of the physiological category.